Hello, I'm gonna make a quick tutorial about the basic in Sai. And what I'm first gonna talk about is the stabilizer. That's how stable your pen is. If it's originally at 11, I think. If you put it down on 0, you can see that your lines will become more wobbly and they won't look that great. And if you put it up, you can see that your lines will become more clean and crisp. This is great if you are drawing line art, and I personally would suggest to put a high stabilizer on if you are going to draw good line art. Of course, you can do it with a low stabilizer too, it's just easier with a high one. The first tool I can talk about is the pen tool. I personally don't use that as much as I did before because I don't do line art anymore, but it's a great tool for line art. Yeah, the density. If you have a high density, you can see that you get all the black color, and the lower the density, the less of the color you have selected will come onto the paper. So low density, that's the example to the right, and high density is the one to the left. And you have min size, that's basically how the edge of your brush will look. High min size is a round edge, and a low min size is a pointy edge. I would suggest having a low min size if you're doing line art. And you have all these settings. I almost never use them myself. I use this a bit for drawing here, but that's basically it. But you can play around with them, and I'm sure you're gonna find something that's great. I just haven't used them as much. The next tool I'm gonna talk about is the brush. I personally use the brush all the time. That's one of my favorite tools. And you can see that you have more options. You can blend with it, Dalton and persistence. You can see high blending. Now, no matter what color I have selected, I only get the color that I'm pointing the brush at. As you can see, this is great for blending. And if you take it down, you see it doesn't matter anymore. The black will still be black. You also have Dalton. I don't know what that is actually. I think it's some fading thing, but I don't use it. I always put it at 0. And that works well for me. And you have persistence. I always have that on 80. Always. You can see what that's doing. I personally never changed that. Just have it on 80. And you have the watercolor tool. I personally use this for blending. Just for blending, never for coloring. You also have the blur tool you can use for blending, but I feel like personally I feel like I have more control when I use the watercolor tool for blending. And you also have blending, Dalton and persistence on the watercolor tool, so you can try and play with them and see what you get. But in the end I'll put my settings on all the brushes so you can look at them and use them if you like. And this is my sketch pen. It's great. It's actually it's not a pen, it's a brush, and it's quite soft, and I love using it for more realistic paintings. And you can see the pen tool, it's harder on the edges than my sketch pen tool. So if you want a more cartoony look when you draw, you use the pen tool. And if you want a more softer look, more realistic look, you can go for the brush tool. This is just the personal preferences, but yeah, that's what I'm doing. And of course on the eraser you also have all these different settings as you have on all the other tools, like min size and density. Basically just the same settings as the pen and brush and watercolor tool. This is the airbrush. I don't use that as much, but yeah, it's quite blurry, and I never ever use this for coloring. I don't think I ever used it for coloring actually. Then I just use the brush tool or the pen tool if I'm doing cell shading or something like that. And you have like these settings that changes the outlines, and the outlines of the pen tool or the tool you're using will become more blurry. I don't know if I explained that correctly. Sorry, my bad English. But I hope you understand. We have something called preserve opacity. I'm gonna show you guys what that is. Now you can't draw outside what you've already drawn. This is great if you're coloring line art and for example you have a black line art, you hate it, you want to make it purple, you just press opacity and just color the whole line art. It's easy peasy. And then you have all these effects you can put on. A lot of them actually. I personally use overlay and luminosity layer the most, especially for warm lights and yeah, lights basically. You have clipping group, that's what I just did, clipping. And then I can merge the layers so both the layers will become one. And yeah, that's basically it. And you have a folder you can put everything in, so you don't need to have like 200 stupid annoying layers. Put them in separate folders. This was my tutorial. I hope I could be to some help, and I'll put the tools and the settings that I'm using on the end of this video, which is basically now. And thank you guys so much for watching, and see you guys soon.